Hello and welcome to this episode of the AF Mentors podcast. Jules, how are you?
I am smashing. It's Friday. I'm buzzing.
Good.
You
Yeah, I'm doing all right, Yeah.
had a good week?
Yeah, I've had a pretty good week. Like personally, been a little bit up and down, but like work-wise, it's been really good. And actually, this is one thing we were going to talk about because I mentioned this on the mastermind yesterday, and I do want to add some like nuance to some of this stuff. So on the mastermind yesterday, I was kind of talking about how even when I've not been feeling good, like I've still been showing up. And sometimes that's really important. And I would say that's one of the hardest things to do as a business owner, especially when your business is largely related to you showing up consistently. It's really hard to show up when you don't feel like showing up. It's easy when everything's going well, but when it's not going so well, or when you've got your own stuff going on, it's hard to do, right? So there isn't a time and a place for like putting your big girl pants on and just doing it. And sometimes, and I guess it's not that dissimilar to sometimes you don't feel like going to the gym. And when you go and you're just like, do you know what? I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. You feel so much better afterwards. But then there are some times when you do need to give yourself a bit of a break and you probably shouldn't be going to the gym that day. Or maybe you are unwell, or maybe you do need a bit of time off and you don't need to put all that pressure on yourself. And to caveat like what I said as well, like I have taken the pressure off myself quite a lot, and I have taken how much I'm showing up has reduced. I've just been smarter about it. So as an example, I had this workshop the other night, felt pretty awful during the day, but I was like, it's 1 hour. I'm going to show up and I'm going to absolutely nail this. And this is what I love doing. And I can't take, like, I think I would say that's my favorite hour of the whole week. Like it felt awesome. And then afterwards I felt really good as well. Because I was like, yes, I did do that. I showed up, I nailed it. And it's more just like what I was talking about yesterday. It was like, prove to yourself that even sometimes when you don't feel like doing it, you can do it. Much like those gym sessions that you didn't want to do. And then you do them and you're like, oh, I absolutely nailed that. And I feel so much better afterwards. Now, caveat, there are times when, and I would say it's more the longevity of it. Like, I mean, is this an overshare? I don't know. I don't care. But basically, I'm a bit heartbroken at the moment. That's a relatively short term thing, right? It's not like overworking or chronically overtraining. So I would bear that in mind if you're someone who's like, I'm just still forcing myself to show up, but I feel like, I felt really bad consistently for a long period of time. There might be something more underlying, much like you would say to a client who's like, I'm still going to the gym, I'm still doing all this, but their performance is just dropping off and off and off, and they're clearly not recovering, and they're clearly not like feeling energized after that. And then there's a time for you to be like, okay, maybe you do need to have a little bit of time off. And sometimes it's not that long. That's the other thing. I think people make this a big deal. They're like, oh my God, am I going to have months and months off? And like, I don't want to burn out and I don't want to let my business go and I don't want to. But actually, sometimes it's just like a couple of days or a week. And the important part here is no pressure. Because like there's been times where people are like, yeah, no, well, I did take the weekend off and I didn't, but I didn't post for a week. It's like, right, but were you still beating yourself up about not posting for that whole week? Because that's not taking time off. You may as well have just posted if you're going to do that. Like the tiring thing about showing up isn't actually the showing up, it's the overthinking beforehand and it's everything that goes with it. If you're doing all that stuff anyway, you may as well have just showed up, right? So I think if you are going to take time off, do it with intention and really take the pressure off. And this is so translatable to how you would talk to clients about this. Like if your client is having a week off because they really need it, but they're still in their head so much and beating themselves up about this week up and off and like over stressing about it, it's not going to rejuvenate them.
And I think you've got to get to know yourself. So like it's very similar to like when I teach a Pilates class at tea time and at 4 o'clock, I'm like, I am so tired. I might just die. I really can't do this. And then I go and teach the class and I come home and I'm like, that was so good. I'm buzzing. But it's what I think people miss is they don't try and take the time off to see what the result will be. And a lot of people have got the fear of taking the time off. And actually, sometimes, like the workshop the other day, or when I go and teach a class, I actually feel better for it. But I've got so much evidence of that now that I know, even when I'm really tired, I'm like, you will feel better for this at 6 o'clock. So I just make myself do it. But in other instances, when I've been working too much and not had a day off in weeks, I'm like, you need a day off. and actually you'll feel better for the day off. And it's getting to know what helps you and what you respond to. And this is a big thing. It's what helps you, because what makes you feel better might not be what makes me feel better. And it probably isn't what makes the people in your house who are not self employed feel better. Because that's a big thing, that people who don't run their own businesses give you their opinions on what you should do from an employed person's point of view, which isn't always going to be applicable to us. And it's not them being unsupportive, they're just telling you from their experience. So I think getting to know yourself and what helps you is a big part of that.
Yeah, obviously, when you're employed, it's much easier to switch off, and you really should, because that's one of the benefits of being employed. Now, I know it's not always as clear cut as this, and like obviously there are promotions and performance reviews and everything, but really, like once you clock off, depending on what your, work constraints are, like you really should be clocking off. And like if they're giving you too much work for the amount of time that you have to do it, like that's a discussion that should be had, not you just working all the hours under the sun outside of that. When you've got your own business, it is obviously slightly different. And that's what I love about having my own business, but it's also like a really hard part of it as well. And it's so hard to know in all areas of life, like when to take time off and when to work harder. And for a lot of people, and again, this is what's hard about putting out messaging on social media, often the wrong people gravitate towards your message, because it's the hard workers that already want to work hard, that love hearing like other people being like, yeah, push through, work hard, no days off, hustle culture, blah, blah, blah. And then it's the people that are looking for the message of like, take more time off, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like it's like the opposing people need to hear those messages. And I see it in myself, right? Like I'm fully more attracted to like tough love, hard work type messaging, because that's what resonates with me. That's the kind of person I am. But I would probably do better to hear more like other end of the spectrum, and like go more towards that. But it's just not in my nature. Like I'm just not interested in it. And vice versa, like a lot of people are the same. It's like you'll often look for the message that you already want to hear, to like, what's the right word? Confirmation bias, right? Like you're looking for someone else saying something similar to you, and then it makes you feel comfortable in the choices that you've made. And it's really hard to get the perspective on yourself to be like, okay, but like if you can take your own biases out of that, is that still the right message? And the thing is, there are no right or wrong messages. It's just for the person that you're trying to talk to. Yeah.
And it is that knowing, like being aware of that. So you know that you lean in more to that type of messaging, that tough love type messaging, because that's you. And it's you're self aware enough to know, actually, this is probably what I need, but this is what I want to hear.
Yeah. A quote that I love from Grace Beverley's book, which is, what is it called? Like hard work.
Working hard, hardly working. It is brilliant. I love that book.
Yeah, so good. But she talks about a bit in it about self-care and how what people assume that self-care is and looking after yourself and stuff. And sometimes she's like, the best thing that you can do sometimes is to spend an hour doing the work that you know that you should be doing, as opposed to having the bubble bath and doing the self-care. Like, if you're stressed about work, she's like, sometimes the best thing you can do is do an hour of work before you go to bed, rather than switch off and do. But that is the complete wrong messaging for someone who never switches off and literally goes from their laptop to bed at 1 a.m. and then tries to get back up at 5 a.m. Like, that's the worst thing they could do. But if you're someone who's like, yeah, I normally switch off at 6 and I have like a couple of hours, but after the kids go to bed between like 8 and 10, maybe I should just do some self-care. But it's like, actually, if you just spent an hour of that time doing a bit of work, like you'd probably be so much further ahead, especially if that's a time where you can get your head down, there's not as many distractions. Maybe you tell your partner or the kids or whatever, like, I just need an hour, come and talk to mum at PM or whatever, and they would respect that, then that would probably be a more effective thing for you in that situation.
There's another part in that book when she was talking about work-life balance, and she said it's not a constant thing, it's like seasons. So there will be times, especially in a self-employed person's life, that you're putting in 15-hour days, 7 days a week, and that might last for 3 weeks. But there'll be other times, other seasons, where you're maybe putting in 4 or 5 hours a day, And actually, you've got lots of free time and you're going for coffees and you're meeting up with pals, but it's not like a regular job where everything's the same week in and week out. And actually, on those seasons that you're doing way more than normal, there will be a flip side to that in seasons that you're doing way less than normal. And this is when people are always like, how much time should I spend working in my business and on my business? Well, it really depends. Like, are you doing a launch? Are you creating something new? What time of year is it? What are your clients doing? Because there'll be times that, like, for example, in the summer, when a lot of clients go away, you can do a lot more on your business, or you can take that time off as well. But realistically, in the fitness industry, in January, what are you going to do? You're going to do a lot of everything, but it's different seasons. And actually, don't beat yourself up those weeks or months that you work extra hard. And then also don't beat yourself up in the weeks and months that you work less.
Yeah, and I like to see these as sprints as well. Like I know that the week before a launch or something, like I am going to be working harder, I am going to be doing longer night, like there is going to be less what most people would deem as like quote unquote life balance, and I'm okay with that. And an interesting thing I read in a book, I think it was a Derek Sivers book, but it might have been something else. But anyway, he was talking about a company that I think he was running, or maybe it was a story about somebody else. But the gist of the story was this company was going to go bust if they didn't like really make a big shift in what they were doing, which was going to take a hell of a lot of time and a hell of a lot of overtime. And he said that he had to go in and tell his staff that like if they didn't make this shift, then the whole company was going to go bust, and that they would have to work longer hours, but at this point he couldn't pay them more. And like were they in or were they out, and he'd totally understand if they were out, but like if you're in, I want you to go home and tell your partner, tell your family, tell your friends that like for the next 6 weeks, like I'm probably not going to be as contactable, like I'm going to have to be in the office, I'm going to have to be doing this stuff, I'm going to have to be building it. And he said he felt so guilty about that. He's like, all I can offer you is when you're around for dinner, like I'm going to get I'm going to order in dinner for everyone at the office, but like I can't pay you more at the moment. Like this is like make or break situation. And all of them said yes. And then he said that he spoke to one of them 10 years later, and he said he was like, they're some of the best memories of my whole life. And I was like, this is because this is the flip side of it. Sometimes I think we think like inherently that working hard is like pulling from other areas of our life, or like, and obviously everything has compromises, everything has sacrifices, right? There is an opportunity cost to how you spend your time, full stop. That's always going to be the case. But it's not necessarily a negative. And I think the key thing there was what they had was purpose. Like imagine getting up every day with everything on the line and going into work and doing everything that you possibly could. Like that gets me excited. That's why like startups are exciting, and that's why like the start of things, and often like big CEOs and stuff look back and it's like, oh, when did you feel most happy in your business? And it's not like when we hit 1 billion in revenue or when we IPO'd onto the stock market. It's like it was when like we were in the, I don't know, like my dad's garage, and we were working every single day and we thought we could do this amazing thing, but like we weren't sure if it would work. And then we started getting all these orders that we couldn't keep up with, and we were way in over our heads, and we were up all night doing this stuff. That's when they were most excited, that's when they were most passionate, that's when they were probably overworking as well. But like that purpose and drive and excitement, like so many people get that. It's like it's kind of similar to the arrival fallacy, right? Like athletes enjoy working towards the goal more than actually achieving it or actually reaching it, the pinnacle of someone's success. And then when they look back on their career, they're like, yeah, it's all the nights that we spent like training so hard as a team. It's not that day that we won the Olympic gold. Like I'm sure that means something, but there is this huge arrival fallacy of like, oh, we've done it, and now life is still life, and I still have to get up and brush my teeth and whatever. And it's just like you thought maybe it was going to be different, but a lot of the enjoyment comes from the drive towards the goal as opposed to the achievement of it.
Look at when we built the first accelerator and we were like voice notes, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock, messages, up again at 6 in the morning. We could do this, we could do that, voice notes. And on paper, you would be like, wait, you were still messaging at 10 o'clock, and then you got up at 6 in the morning, continued messaging, hundreds of messages, hundreds of voice notes. Let's do this, let's do that. What about this idea? What about that idea? We were absolutely buzzing. And it was a huge amount of excited energy. But when people talk about like work-life balance and you look at it on paper, people would have been like, no, that's too much. But it wasn't. It was brilliant.
Yeah, when you're excited about something, you have a lot more energy for it. And it feels good. It doesn't feel like hard work, right? That felt like fun. That felt like we're creating something that we know is going to have a big impact and we're excited about it. And I think that's an element as well. Like, if you really love something and you're passionate about it and you're excited about what you're doing, you will, what will feel like effortlessly outwork people who aren't. And I honestly think that's one of the reasons I've stayed in this so long. And people will look at what I do and they're like, oh my God, but you've done this many podcasts, or you show up this much, or you do that. And I'm like, one of the keys is I do genuinely enjoy all of it. Not saying it's not hard now and again. I'm not saying there aren't weeks where I struggle a little bit more or where there's like bits that I don't really want to do, but the vast, vast, vast majority of what I do, I love it.
We talked about this yesterday on Mastermind, and we were talking about launches, and someone had said, do you need to remind yourself to post about certain things or to post every day? And what we were saying was, when we're so excited about something we're launching, it's the opposite way. We're like, right, you've done 9 million posts, calm yourself down a wee bit. And actually, because you're so excited about something, it's not, oh, I should do another post or I need to remember to tell people that. You're like, I have got so much to tell you and I'm so excited about it that I'm actually holding myself back from it because there's so much buzz. And that's like, if you enjoy what you're doing and you're excited about it, not only does it actually make the work easier, make the work more enjoyable, but it creates FOMO and people buy into it so much more.
Yeah. But how do you, so like, and I'm asking this as like, because I know it's what people will ask me. So I'm interested in your opinion on this. How do you create that?
How
Or
do you
do you
keep the
think part of
excitement?
it is like natural and it's like, if you're not excited about your business, then you're probably in the wrong business?
How do you I've never actually thought about how I create it, but
No, because I don't think you do. I think it's quite natural for you because you do what you love and you're excited about the impact it can have.
I suppose that's a really good point then. So, like, well, if you're not naturally excited about it, right, and I think I maybe take it too far sometimes, but if you're not buzzing about it, why are you doing it? And also, especially with online coaching or in person coaching, there's 8 million ways to do it and 8 million things you can offer. So, are you offering the same as someone else because you look to someone else, they're really successful at it. So you're like, well, I'll replicate what or close to what they're doing. And it's not, you're not really bought into it. You're not really that excited about it. Like, for example, I am a yoga teacher. Do you ever hear me talking about yoga? Never. Because I just don't enjoy it. I'm just not excited about it. But probably on every single mastermind, I probably mention Pilates at some point because I'm really excited about it. And I think that's what you need to think about is the thing you're offering. Are you just doing it because you think it will be successful and you've seen other people be successful? Or can you break the mold a wee bit? You don't have to do the same as everyone else or anyone else. Do it however you want to do it. Like, make up your own rules for things. You don't have to be the same as anyone else. And then, actually, if you're dancing to your own tune, it gets much more exciting because there's no limits on you. You can create whatever you want to create. Like, they add in the mindset course to commit to 6. Would a lot of people add a mindset element to what essentially is fitness and nutrition? No, maybe not. But you were like, this will be really amazing. Let's do it. And people are like, this is brilliant. And people have bought into it because you're not penning yourself into this is what this plan should be. Like, there's no boundaries. And I think that's a big part of it. Do whatever makes you excited, even if it doesn't fit the norm.
Agree. Did we cover both of the things you wanted to talk about there? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was all the whole work life. In fact, my friend doesn't call it work life balance. She calls it work life integration.
I call it synergy.
Yeah.
And the reason I like synergy more is because the definition of synergy is two or more things coming together to be better than their parts, right? And what I don't like about work-life balance is it's the connotation of that one part of your life has to take from another part, and when it does, it will become unbalanced. Whereas actually, most things, when you do them right, are synergistic. So, for example, when you take time to diet well, exercise, sleep, actually the rest of your life improves. When you take time to take care of your relationships, then actually you're happier at work and your work life improves, right? Like, you actually kind of need all of them to synergistically fit together, which does, like, on a practical level, like some like balancing of your time. But I think the whole concept of work-life balance, and when most people talk about it, they are talking about like taking from one part, or like, oh, you're not balanced enough, you should work less. It's like, okay, well, if you were looking at a more synergistic way, you'd be like, okay, well, how do I incorporate my life so that I can work maybe smarter, or so that I can bring this element of my life into this, so that, I don't know, that feels like I'm ticking two boxes at the same time. Like, how can I make this synergistic? And sometimes like it goes two ways, right? Like sometimes people like resent work because it's taking away from the time they can spend exercising, and sometimes people resent exercise because it's taking away from like what they're meant to be doing at work. Whereas when you get the right dose of both things are better. Like I'm showing up better on this podcast because I've just done a workout, 100%. Now, could I have technically done more work during the time I did a workout? Yeah, of course I could have. But I know that this is actually more beneficial, even for my work, to have done that, let alone for my own personal health and, whatever.
Agree.
Yeah. Okay, do you want some quick fire questions that I got?
Go for it.
Alrighty then. Okay, first one. Any advice on good behavioural books or resources for coaches, please?
Take it in terms of actually coaching.
I would assume so, yeah. Behavioural books or resources. Like you've got the classics of Atomic Habits. What is it? Mindset, Carol Dweck, if you wanted to get more into the research. Or is it just, I think it might just be called Change or Ready to Change, Katie Milkman. That's a lot of behavioural science research is in there. I really like Master of Change, which is another book. Yeah, I mean, I think the key is you need to take some of those concepts, digest them in your head, apply them to coaching, figure out how you want to apply them based on your experience, your clients, what they need to hear, what they can implement, and then come up with kind of like your own thing. Like all of my coaching is based off everything I've read. And there are elements I'll pull in from different areas and elements I don't think were useful from that part, or I didn't really resonate. And yeah, like that's what makes your unique coaching approach.
My suggestion is going to be a wee bit different. So rather than read another book to make you a better coach, another book, because I'm going to guess you've read 5 million, I think most coaches should go and read some books to make them a better business owner. Because most coaches that we interact with are absolutely phenomenal coaches, very dedicated to coaching, will always sign up for another course, will always read another book to make them a better coach, but very few of them identify as business owners and have got a business owner mindset. So if you've read a lot of how to be a better coach type books, I would throw in a how to be a better business owner type books. Read some marketing books. Seth Godin, everything he writes is brilliant.
And also start applying this stuff. And that would be my biggest take home, because you're right. Most people who ask questions like this have already read a lot of these books. They're just looking for the next one that's going to be like the thing that changes everything for them. And they don't take enough action. This is exactly why when I built the mindset course for Commit to Six, and actually exactly the way we run the accelerator, they are short, sharp, action orientated things. It's like they're not these big, long, convoluted, let's overthink everything, and then like you're kind of left more confused than when you started. It's like, bam, here's the application, go away and do it. And don't do it next week, don't do it next month, don't do it just vaguely like this is kind of what I'll live my life by now. No, action it now. What's going to happen this week? What's going to happen tomorrow off the back of having this new knowledge or this new concept or this new framework? And that's why I really like frameworks as well, because they kind of force you into taking some kind of action. So the whole of the mindset course, and by the way, that mindset course is basically built off a lot of these books put together, and my own experiences with clients and with myself, and what works and what doesn't work and what resonates. But they all have, and this is the action I want you to take off the back of this. And that's what's often missing in these self-help type books, because it's just like loads of theory, often quite a lot of overthinking, and then people like feel like they're doing something, but sometimes it's just another form of procrastination, and they don't actually make any real changes.
That's a big thing with a lot of coaches. They plan, and then they're like, oh, but I could change that, and I could change this, and I could add that. Get somebody to use it, and then you'll see what changes need to be made. Stop planning and start actually just doing the thing.
Yeah.
And nobody we work with under plans, except me, maybe. But
yeah, and maybe me actually. I'm like,
I think, yeah, we're maybe a wee bit more on the other side, that we're just all action. But That's the thing with coaches. A lot of them plan and plan, and then maybe I'll look at this and just do it. Let's go.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I would suggest on this, though, is rather than reading a lot of these, I think one of the most interesting things that you can learn about, and this helps you with business, there's kind of just like general people skills that will help you in relationships or help you understand people or help you with your coaching. Read about cognitive biases because everyone has them. You all have your own biases. I was actually voice noting Katie about this today because she mentioned something about like someone who was saying that they're self-aware, and she was like, they're like the least self-aware person that they know. And I'm like, I have this theory about people who claim that they're self-aware, and they are usually the least self-aware people. And you have this kind of Dunning-Kruger effect of self-awareness where someone will start like doing some work on themselves or get therapy or something, and then they feel like they're really self-aware. Look, the truth is nobody's really self-aware, and you get to a point that you're self-aware enough to know that you're not self-aware, because it's so hard to be. Like, you have all your own experiences in your head, all your own biases, all your own fears and insecurities and everything. It's very, very hard to be truly quite like rational and have perspective over your own life. That's why things like therapy or having a mentor or, you know, talking to people about things, getting other people's outside opinion is so, so useful. Like, on a very small scale, that's why having someone else look at your social media is so useful, because you can't really see how you come across. Even when I watch my own videos, I'm like, do I look friendly in that? Or do I look quite like aggressive? Or do I look like, I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell how I come across because I am me, you know? And then someone else will say like something about how I've come across. I'm like, and I used to think, oh, you're wrong, because that's not me. Like, that's not how I am. But it's like, no, they are right, because that is their interpretation of how you come across. And they're seeing it from their own lens with their own biases, right? But yeah, I just think that's quite an interesting observation of like self-awareness. But reading up on cognitive biases, I think, is so, so useful, because you start to notice it in people, you start to notice it in yourself. And then you can decide, like, once you notice something, you can decide if that's useful, if you want to change it, if you don't, whatever. All right, ready for the next one? How to be your authentic self in all aspects on social media, with clients, and know that you're enough. A big one.
You'll being your authentic self isn't always being the same person, because you'll be different with different people. Like, and that's okay. And it's not inauthentic to like react differently and interact differently with different people. Like, how do you describe like being, or you don't want to
Yeah,
say like,
I think you're right. There's
fine.
an authentic version of me with my friends and with my family. And in fact, those two things are different as well. And then there's an authentic version of me. And I would say, like, for me especially, there's an authentic version of me as a coach and an authentic version of me as a mentor. And I speak quite differently on here than I do on the ESG podcast, which I'll actually speak even quite differently, even though it's both coaching, on the EC Method podcast, because I have a different relationship with Chloe, but also just like the vibe of the podcast and the episodes and what they're for and who they're for. And none of those are inauthentic. Like, they are all me. I just show up differently in different areas of my life. It would be weird if I showed up as a business mentor to my parents, you know? Like, that wouldn't really, like, I don't know, make sense at the dinner table kind of thing. And you don't, and I think the other thing with being authentic is there was a phase, and I feel like we've moved past it, or maybe I just don't see that part of social media anymore, but there was this whole push for like authenticity of like, you should cry on camera, you should show your whole life, you need to show your vulnerabilities, you know. And it's like there's a line where that's just oversharing. And you do have to remember as well, like, you are a coach, you have to look to an extent like you've got your shit together. And I would also suggest that like you can not have your shit together in a certain element of your life. Like, maybe something's happened in your personal life, but you can still show up and have your shit together as a coach. And that will really help you. Like, that will really help you not let one area of your life kind of crumble into all areas of your life, right? And it will give you a bit of like drive and purpose when other areas might not be going so well. So I think what you need to focus more on is like being relatable, and the authenticity should be showing up and giving a message that you care about. And it's more about the impact that you want to have. Like, I'm authentic to the impact that I want to have, as opposed to how some people kind of interpret it as like, I don't know, I think it's like feeling the pressure to overshare sometimes when people hear authenticity. It doesn't mean that you need to share everything that's going on in your life.
Yeah, and that's like we always say, you can show people who you are without telling them anything personal. You don't need to tell everyone your personal business, but you can still show people what your personality is like and what type of person you are without telling them the ins and outs of your life.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, right. You ready for the next one?
Go.
I'm taking the leap from face to face to online. Any tips? I'm taking the leap at the moment steadily, which makes me feel like it's not so much of a leap. You can't steadily take a leap.
Do you know, I love that saying, jump and the net will appear. And going back to what you said earlier, that fits my personality because I like to be really impulsive and I love taking risks. So when I heard someone say jump and the net will appear, I apply that to everything now. Anything I'm not sure of, I'm like, sure, just do it and see what happens. It'll be fine. And that fits with my personality, whereas someone much more risk averse wouldn't like that. And they would probably have a different quote in their head for it. But yeah, you're right. You can't slowly and steadily, carefully take a leap. You can't be careful and leap at the same time.
Yeah. Without all of the context behind this, it's quite hard to say exactly what you should be doing and what your position is and stuff. But one, get support and reach out to us if you want to join. We would love to help you. Two, I would say give yourself a timeline and stop with like constantly questioning yourself because this is often what happens. Oh, will it work? Will it not work? Will it? And actually, that is what's so fatiguing for people. It's not actually doing the work, it's the constant questioning. So that can become very draining. So I'd set yourself a bit of a timeline of like, right, I'm going to get my head down, I'm going to focus on this for X amount of time, I'm going to really give it a go to make this work. And then if you need to question yourself after that, you can question yourself after that. But I think if you don't do that, it's the draining questioning of yourself, thinking it's going to fail, talking yourself out of that, that it just makes it so unbelievably hard. And then often what happens is you don't show up as well because of all that shit that's going on in your head. And then actually you don't get the result. When the second thing that I would say here, or the third thing maybe, is give it your all. Because what we notice in business, and especially with showing up on social media, but honestly with like probably most things in life, if you don't give it your all, you don't get like a small percentage of the result, you just get nothing. Like you have to really be like, I'm all in, I'm going to make this work. Even if in your head you have to say like, right, 3 months, all in, making this work, no questioning myself, just really. And then at the end of that 3 months, I'll assess then whether I still want to make this business work or go and do something else or whatever. But it's the daily like, is this going to work? Is this going to work? And then you don't show up as well because you're half in. Your foot's like half in the door, half out, you know? Think about it with a relationship. Like if your foot's always like half out the door, that relationship isn't going to work. Like you kind of have to be like, right, I'm all in for this for, and if you need to put a timeline on it, like let's see where we are in 3 months. But if you're like, well, I don't know, every day you're kind of like half in, half out, that relationship is never going to work. Much like your business is never going to work if you're just questioning the whole time and then not really showing up for it.
What I would say as well is the person that asks sounds as if they're more to the risk averse side. So what I would say is think about how many online clients do you need or how much revenue do you need to drop a day of in person and then stick to that. Because what a lot of people do is they're like, right, I need 5 online clients to drop one day in person. So they get the 5 online clients and then they're like, yeah, but maybe it should be 7 before I drop a day. And then there's 7. And then like, yeah, but maybe it should be 9, and they keep pushing that out because their personality is risk averse. So work it out financially. What do you need online to start dropping in person days and then stick to it? Don't hedge your bets when you get to it and be like, oh, just a wee bit more, just a wee bit more.
You
Make
will
that
always move. Yeah, you'll always move the
always move.
goalpost.
Yeah. Make a plan, stick to it.
Yeah, agree. And know your numbers, you know, like this is when you're changing from one career to another or you're going online or whatever, like you do kind of need to know, right, okay, I've put myself in a position where these are the numbers that I need to get. Like people call it your freedom number, right? But as you'll say, don't get to it and then think I could have like be a little bit more cushy and have a little bit more. But what will happen is you get too busy to actually build the online side. And then you get kind of stuck in limbo a little bit. And yeah. And then things often actually tend to go back downhill because you're not picking up as many online, and then you're like, I thought this was going to work, but it hasn't worked. I can't understand why it hasn't worked. And that is exactly why. All right, that was freaking awesome. I think, hold on, let me just, oh yes, I have a podcast in 3 minutes, so I probably should go. I was like, oh, this is really good. We actually still have a few more questions, so we can cover them next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for your amazing time and your brain. And if you are interested in joining AFM and starting 2025 in the best position possible to have the most successful 2025, then head over to afmentors.com, book in a call. We would love to chat to you. All right, bye.